Busy couple of days. Ed China told me that he'd made the decision to leave Wheeler.
For years, Anstead seemed to be living the dream: fame, talent, and a global audience through wheeler dealers. On screen, he brought broken cars back to life. Off-screen, his own life was quietly unraveling. In just a few years, Ant lost almost everything: his marriage, daily life with his children, his career momentum, and eventually his financial stability. One shock followed another until the spotlight faded, and he found himself facing his darkest chapter yet. This isn't rumor or exaggeration. It's real life. What really happened during Anstead's final days on wheeler dealers? Why did he disappear? And how did a man known for fixing everything end up broken himself? The truth is far more heartbreaking than most fans ever realized. From the outside, Ant's story can seem complicated, even overwhelming. But when each moment is broken down, the pattern becomes clear. Just as he once analyzed cars piece by piece, examining what worked, what failed, and what might cost more than expected, his own life began to reveal hidden damage beneath the surface. His story isn't about asking for sympathy. It's about confronting the reality that even the strongest, most capable people can reach a breaking point when loss arrives all at once. Anstead entered his second marriage at the peak of his American television career. In late 2018, he married Christina Hall, and the relationship quickly became a media fixture as the two appeared together on HGTV programs, most notably Christina on the Coast. The birth of their son, Hudson, in September 2019 seemed to confirm the image of a blended, successful family built around two well-known TV personalities. That image shattered just a year later. In September 2020, Christina publicly announced their separation, catching Ant completely off guard. He made it clear that the decision was not his, stating openly that he did not initiate the end. The breakup marked the beginning of a prolonged personal collapse. In the weeks that followed, Ant lost more than 20 pounds, entered a breakup recovery program, and voluntarily sought therapy and healing retreats. His social media presence reflected raw exhaustion and grief as he openly shared the emotional toll of losing his marriage and daily life with his child. The situation escalated further in April 2022 when Ant filed for full custody of Hudson, igniting a bitter legal battle. In court filings, he accused Christina of irresponsible parenting, citing incidents such as severe sunburn, failure to disclose COVID-19 exposure, and the use of their son's image for promotional purposes. Ant argued that Hudson should not be turned into a commercial asset. Christina responded forcefully, pointing out that Ant himself had shared images of Hudson while promoting his own company, Radford Motors. What followed was an intensely public dispute, played out both in court and on social media. One of the most controversial moments came when Ant referenced the tragic death of former Toddlers and Tiaras star Kaylia Posey, using it to underscore his fears about child exploitation in the public eye. After 12 hours of mediation, the two finally reached a custody agreement in November 2022, opting to share parental responsibility. This painful chapter directly influenced Ant's professional life. At the end of 2020, he chose to leave Wheeler Dealers rather than relocate with the show back to the UK. Remaining in California, close to his son, became his priority. Reflecting on the decision, Ant acknowledged his pride in the show's success, but made his position clear. Being a father, above all else, was the most important role he would ever have. Not long after stepping away from television, Anstead poured what remained of his energy into what he described as the ultimate expression of his passion. In 2020, alongside Mark Stubbs and former Formula One champion Jenson Button, he relaunched Radford Motors. Their ambition was bold: to revive the legendary Radford name by building the Lotus Radford Type 62-2, an ultra-light luxury performance coupe. The venture became the focus of the series Radford Returns, and for Ant, it represented the biggest risk he had ever taken. Cracks began to appear in 2023. Customers complained that vehicles they had placed deposits on were never delivered, and some dealers quietly canceled their orders. The situation escalated in March 2024, when a shareholder filed a lawsuit against Anstead and Mark Stubbs, alleging contract fraud and the failure to repay a $2 million debt. Ant maintained that his role was limited to engineering and communications, but his name was now directly tied to the growing controversy. By October 2024, Radford Motors filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Court documents revealed the company could no longer meet its delivery obligations and was facing multiple legal challenges. Even then, Ant publicly insisted the company would fight to survive, saying they were not giving up. He framed the crisis as a chance to rebuild, continuing to share factory images, technical drawings, and vehicle details in an effort to keep the dream alive and stay connected to the car community. That optimism faded in May 2025, when Radford Motors shifted from Chapter 11 to Chapter 7 bankruptcy, signaling full liquidation, shutdown, and the end of any possibility of recovery. European parts suppliers confirmed they had not been paid, while completed Type 62-2 vehicles sat in storage, trapped in legal limbo. For Anstead, the fallout was deeply personal. This was more than a failed business venture. It was the collapse of the identity he had been rebuilding since leaving Wheeler Dealers. Between 2020 and 2024, Radford Motors had been his answer to a painful question. Who was he after television? Now, that answer had unraveled in full public view. For longtime followers of his career, this marked the first time Ant had not only struggled emotionally, but faced a highly visible financial downfall. From armed police officer to television presenter to entrepreneur, he had always reinvented himself in search of purpose. After Radford's collapse, the question was no longer whether Anstead still had passion, but whether passion alone would be enough to help him stand back up again. Long before he became a familiar face on television, Anstead lived a life far removed from cameras and classic cars. At just 20 years old, he joined the Hertfordshire Police Force and was quickly selected for the Tactical Response Team, an elite unit responsible for handling armed crime, hostage situations, and other high-risk operations. By the age of 23, Ant was carrying a firearm and facing life-and-death scenarios most people would never encounter. He was twice awarded the Medal of Bravery, and those moments on the edge of survival permanently reshaped how he viewed people, fear, and the world around him. That chapter left its mark. The years spent as an armed officer gave Ant more than sharp instincts and discipline. They also left psychological scars from what he witnessed and endured. Remaining calm under extreme pressure became second nature. Later, when he transitioned into television, he would often say that standing in front of a camera felt effortless compared to the realities he had faced on the streets. That quiet toughness became the foundation of the steady, confident presence audiences came to trust on screen. Even with a solid and respected career in law enforcement, Ant carried a deeper passion that never faded: cars. As a teenager, he built his first vehicle by hand and sold it for a profit. What captivated him wasn't speed or performance alone, but the process of restoring, reshaping, and giving old machines a second life. At 26, after nearly 7 years in the police force, he made a bold and unexpected choice. He walked away from his badge to pursue car building full-time. He started with almost nothing. With no workshop and little money, Ant negotiated to rent an abandoned barn in exchange for renovating it himself. There, working alone, he rebuilt cars piece by piece, dealt directly with customers, and began filming his work to share online. To fund those early projects, he relied on earnings from semi-professional football, having played more than 700 matches in the Ryman League as both a goalkeeper and a striker. Between 2005 and 2014, Anstead quietly built a reputation within the UK's bespoke car world. He didn't rely on advertising or early television exposure. Instead, his work spoke for itself. Clients sought him out for his precision, his respect for originality, and the discipline he brought to every restoration. Over time, word spread among collectors and enthusiasts, and his growing body of work began to attract attention beyond garages and workshops. Eventually, television producers noticed him, not for his looks, but for his deep, practical understanding of cars. His real breakthrough came in 2014 when he was cast alongside Philip Glenister on Channel 4's For the Love of Cars. Ant was responsible for restoring every vehicle featured on the show, from humble Mini Coopers to prestigious Aston Martin DB6s. He wasn't just a mechanic on camera, he became the heart of the program, demonstrating both technical mastery and a clear philosophy about craftsmanship. Viewers responded strongly, and Ant was soon described as a fresh, authentic face in British motoring television. That success opened new doors. He went on to appear on Building Cars Live with James May and Kate Humble and became a familiar host at major automotive events across the UK. Yet all of it traced back to one pivotal decision: leaving the police force in 2005 and starting over in a neglected barn with little more than old cars, basic tools, and relentless determination. His years in armed policing, standing face-to-face with danger, had taught him resilience. Having survived the hardest moments, he believed rebuilding a life from scratch was possible if he stayed steady. That foundation set him apart. Ant became one of the rare figures who could combine genuine technical expertise with a calm, confident public presence. After For the Love of Cars, his standing among classic car enthusiasts continued to rise. So when Ed China left Wheeler Dealers in 2017 after more than a decade, the production faced a difficult choice. They needed someone with real mechanical skill, strong on-screen presence, and the ability to explain complex processes in a way audiences could follow. Ant was selected. Stepping into such an iconic role was risky. Ed China wasn't just a mechanic, he was deeply tied to the show's identity. When Ant joined Mike Brewer for the US-filmed seasons, criticism came quickly. Online, viewers dissected every move and comparison. Ant stayed quiet publicly, later admitting in a 2019 interview that he felt the pressure daily and knew he had to earn his place. Over the next 3 years, he helped keep Wheeler Dealers among Discovery Channel's most widely distributed shows worldwide. Under his involvement, the program expanded beyond simple restorations, offering deeper technical insight into how cars work. Ratings climbed across the US, Europe, and Australia. Production facilities in California were upgraded, and Ant came to represent a new generation of mechanics, skilled, articulate, and credible. That success came at a cost. Filming schedules were intense, often stretching 10 to 12 hours a day over long periods. As his visibility grew, so did the demands. In 2019, he took on a more personal project as host of Anstead Master Mechanic. With no co-host and no distractions, the show followed him as he rebuilt an Alfa Romeo 158 from the ground up. Stripped down to just metal, tools, and patience, it revealed the craftsman beneath the television persona. Anstead didn't slow down as his television profile grew. He appeared in programs such as Barrett-Jackson Live, World's Greatest Cars, and most notably Celebrity IOU Joyride, where he met Renee Zellweger in 2021. But that non-stop pace came at a cost. The constant travel, long filming days, and work spread across time zones began to strain his personal life. Time with family became scarce, and the distance increasingly separated him from his first two children and his former wife, Louise Story, who remained in the UK. His decision to relocate permanently to the United States wasn't just a career move. It meant living far away from his older children. Though they stayed in contact, the physical distance and time difference took an emotional toll. In one interview, Ant became visibly emotional as he admitted missing major moments in their lives, confessing that he had learned the hard truth that he couldn't have everything. That conflict came to a head in 2020 when Wheeler Dealers prepared to move production back to the UK. Returning would have brought him closer to his children there, but Ant chose to remain in the US because his youngest son, Hudson, was too young to be separated from his parents. He later said he never regretted the choice, even though it meant walking away from the biggest show of his career. After his departure, public attention shifted away from his work and toward his private life, his relationship with Zellweger, and his highly public custody battle. What remained unseen were the years of craftsmanship, the restored cars, and the modern approach to automotive television he helped shape. His rise to the top of TV came with sacrifices, time, privacy, and pieces of his personal life left behind with every finished project. After enduring 2 failed marriages and very public heartbreaks, Ant refocused on what mattered most to him: stability and connection with his children. His first marriage to Louise Story, which began in his teenage years and lasted until 2017, produced 2 children, Amelie and Archie. Despite their divorce, Ant and Louise maintained a respectful and cooperative relationship. He has often described her as his closest ally in raising their children, even from opposite sides of the ocean. His second marriage to Christina Hall was brief but turbulent. They married in late 2018, welcomed their son Hudson in 2019, and divorced less than 2 years later. What followed was an intense custody dispute played out publicly and legally. By 2023 and 2024, tensions eased. Christina later acknowledged the importance of putting their son's well-being above personal grievances, and in late 2024, they even appeared together on a new television project, The Flip-Off, a sign they had found a way to coexist for Hudson's sake. His relationship with Renee Zellweger, however, unfolded very differently. The two met in 2021 and kept their romance private for months. By 2025, Zellweger had moved in with Ant and Hudson in San Diego. Friends close to the couple say she played a crucial role in stabilizing his life during the collapse of Radford Motors, helping manage both media pressure and family dynamics. In a birthday message shared in 2024, Ant described her as the kindest person he knew, and the only one who truly understood him. Professionally, Ant no longer juggles multiple high-profile shows at once. Instead, he returned to something deeply personal with Ant Anstead. Born Mechanic, released in 2024. The series strips away spectacle and celebrity, following him as he restores a 500-year-old farm in England intended to become a future home for his parents. Funded by restoring and selling vintage cars, just as he did in his early days, the project marked a return to his roots. The show was warmly received and renewed for a second season in 2025. After years of upheaval, this quieter chapter has become Ant Anstead's place of balance.